route, faudrait voir, faut qu'on y goûte des méandres au creux des reins. Tout ira bien. Le vent l'emportera. Dans le message à la grande ours, la trajectoire de la course, l'instantané de velours, même s'il sert à rien. Le vent l'emportera. Tout disparaîtra.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your phones on silent.
سيداتي سادتي، يرجى وضع الهاتف المحمول على وضع الصامت.
تمام. يلا 1 2 3. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Good afternoon
and welcome to WEP 2026.
My name is Dalia Khoja. I'm a master's student from the Thai program.
And I'm Abu Bakr, a PhD student from the Chemical Engineering program here at KAUST. We're happy to welcome you on behalf of the WEP team and to serve as your Master of Ceremonies throughout this year's program.
The Winter Enrichment Program has become a defining experience at KAUST. Each year, it brings our community together to explore ideas, exchange perspectives, and engage with thought leaders from all around the world. With this year's theme being Adaptation, Reshaping for a Fluctuating Future.
But before we begin, please note that there are no scheduled emergency drills today. In the unlikely event of an emergency, please proceed calmly to the nearest exits. If you need any assistance at all, please ask any of the volunteers wearing blue vests. We'll be more than happy to help you.
To officially open today's ceremony, we are honored to welcome Professor Arwa Al-A'ma, KAUST Vice President for Education and Advancement. Please join us in welcoming Professor Arwa Al-A'ma.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Distinguished guests, KAUST community, it is my great pleasure to launch WEP 2026, the latest edition of the KAUST Winter Enrichment Program themed Adaptation, Reshaping for a Fluctuating Future. WEP is KAUST's signature education event designed to inspire students from within KAUST and beyond through events, projects, and talks that extend well past the traditional academic curriculum. This year, alongside our KAUST students, we are delighted to welcome 650 students from universities across Saudi Arabia, reflecting our commitment to education for all and to KAUST's mission of community impact. The chair of WEP 2026, Professor Deanna Lacoste, and the co-chair, Professor Atif Shamim, and the entire WEP 2026 team have gone above and beyond to bring together outstanding speakers and truly inspiring activities. I extend my sincere thanks to each of them. We hope you find the sessions enriching, engaging, and deeply transformative. Welcome again to WEP 2026, and now I invite Professor Deanna to talk more about this program. Thank you.
Thank you. The future has always been uncertain and dynamic, but the frequency and the amplitude of the changes we are experiencing today have no precedent in human history. Climate events, health crises, economic shocks, these disruptions are no longer rare. They are the new norm. Here is a picture of the Pakistan flood in 2022. These floods killed 739 people and left 2.1 million of people homeless. How could we adapt to such extreme climate events? This is a good question. Maybe we could explore nature-based solutions, nature adapts fast. In this picture, we are seeing a dump landfill in Portugal in southern Europe. These big birds here are storks. They used to migrate from northern Europe to Africa every winter. But on their way to Africa, one day, they found this landfill in a country where the weather conditions were good for them. And they decided to stop there and not go back to Africa again. From a species that was experiencing major declines and was expected to be extinguished in the coming few decades, now the stork population slowly increases again. By changing their route, they reduced the dangers of a long migration, and by doing so, maybe saved themselves from extinction. If we want to adapt to fast and unpredictable changes, we should learn how to do it. We will need to change our education, which is currently based on acquiring knowledge and training to become a performer, but not necessarily on how to find new solutions rapidly. Imagine you have a 1-hour exam and you start to work on the problem. After 45 minutes, the professor comes and tells you, okay, we changed the problem. This is not what you have been working on. Now you have 15 minutes to find a solution to this new problem. That would be interesting. This is what's happening today in real life. Now an example of adaptation. So this little girl is Willy. It's my dog. He was hit by a car in the street in Jeddah in 2024. He had a spine injury, and he could not walk anymore because his back legs are paralyzed. I am a mechanical engineer, and I decided that, okay, I wanted to help him. So I worked hard to find a solution for him, and I made a custom-made wheelchair. And now he can live a normal dog life, and I hope he's happy. For this winter enrichment program, we have invited people who are rethinking how we live, how we learn, and how we can thrive in a world of change. From cutting-edge technology to nature-based solutions, we will explore the bold and brilliant ways people are preparing for an unpredictable tomorrow. At this stage of my opening remarks, I want to thank the team. These 18 people did really, truly an amazing job. I want to sincerely thank them for their hard work, their passion, their great ideas, and their kindness. Without what they did beyond their job, I would not be so proud of what we can offer today during this WEP and for the coming 10 days. I'm not asking you to applaud them now, because I want sincere appreciation from your side, and you don't know yet what WEP will bring to you. We will come back to this slide during the final gala, and I hope that then you will be able to express your gratitude to them. Finally, before we start with the exciting program, I want to ask you 2 questions related to the theme. So, if you could take your phone and scan this QR code, I would like to know, how do you feel about the future? You have 5 options covering the entire spectra, I think, of feelings, from full of hope to optimistic, neutral, anxious, or scared. Okay, please vote. There seems to be a battle between anxious and optimistic. Okay, so it seems to have a small advantage of anxious, followed by optimistic. Personally, I also belong to the anxious group of people, and I hope that the theme of this year WEP will resonate with you, also with the optimistic and the full of hope and the scared one, because we will explore how we can adapt to the future, so I hope you will learn things. Okay, we still have a few people voting. Okay, almost everyone, so thank you very much. The next question is a question where you can write a word. I'm asking for you, what are the most important areas that need improvement? And we'll see the word you are typing directly on the screen. I hope, okay. Okay, we are in, that's interesting. Okay, Tamimi is a private joke, please. Don't do it. So I want to be fair. I wait until we reach 400 votes. Okay, so that's very interesting. We see that education, health, and environment are the big winners. There is also salary. That's fine. Anyway, thank you all very much for this very interesting answer. I'm glad that we have such a diverse audience, and I'm sure that discussion and Q&A session will be very interesting. To conclude, welcome to WEP 2026. I hope you will enjoy the talks, the performances, and the workshop, and that you will learn a few things to become better in adaptation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Deanna Lacoste, for that enriching, engaging, and interactive showcase. And now, to deliver the welcoming address, please join me in inviting KAUST President, Professor Sir Edward Byrne, AC, to the stage.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, Dr. Abdulaziz Almalik, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. It's a huge pleasure for me to be with you today. I attended my first winter enrichment program, I guess, a year ago, and was really impressed by the breadth and intellectual energy and indeed the enjoyment of the occasion. I realized many years ago as a physician and scientist that one of the perils one falls into in life is that one's thinking can become too siloed. And where you have the ability to enjoy and engage in science, in the arts, in a broad range of intellectual activity, it not only makes your life more enjoyable, but it gives better outcomes for the things you engage in. And I saw through my first winter enrichment program that type of multifaceted thinking was at its core, so important in a scientific university. We've just heard very cogently about the challenges of the modern world, and I really congratulate the organizers for having selected adaptation, reshaping for a fluctuating future as the theme for this really exciting occasion. Yes, there is more change certainly in quantitative terms than at almost any time in human history. And it is appropriate, indeed sensible at times, to have a degree of anxiety when you think about that. But also, we have a greater capacity, we have more tools at our command to deal with that change and lead to positive outcomes than we've ever had before. So I'm on the optimistic side of the equation because I think future is in humanity's hands, and I think we have the tools and the capacity to get where we get to. I was really interested by the response to the last slide, where education was so prominent in the responses about areas of critical importance. Of course, in an institution which is largely devoted to education, Prof. Arwa, myself, and I'm sure many of our faculty took some gratitude that our student body saw that as so important. I was also reminded of the recent, fairly recent WHO work led by Sir Michael Marmot, looking at the basis of health inequality, where the group found that poor education was the single most important factor. So education flows into so many of the other things that were mentioned on that slide. So it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you all to the 2026 Winter Enrichment Programme. WEP is one of KAUST's most valued traditions, a special tradition, and it's a moment each year when, as a university community, we step back from the urgent to reflect on the essential, to consider how knowledge, creativity, and leadership help shape our shared future, indeed help contribute to our sense of shared humanity. This year's theme, as mentioned, adaptation, reshaping for a fluctuating future, speaks directly to the world we inhabit and the problems we face. As we've heard a couple of times, we are living through a period of profound transformation. Environmental systems are under strain, we all know that. And we all know, especially in a university like ours, that technologies are evolving at unprecedented speed. Societies everywhere are navigating uncertainty. Uncertainty is much from the external changes around us as from the changes occurring from the intellectual developments we're creating ourselves, largely in universities. You know, look at the challenges in the job market likely to emerge in the last few years through the successful introduction of integrative AI technologies, just to mention one thing. In such a world, progress depends not on resisting change, I think we all know that because that only leads to a bad outcome, but on learning how to adapt intelligently, responsibly, and with real purpose. Successful adaptation is never passive. It's an active choice to reshape systems so they remain resilient, inclusive, and sustainable. It's not about anticipating, it's not all about anticipating what lies ahead. It's about anticipating that as best as we can, thinking of a range of possibilities and preparing for them as best as we can through a combination of science and innovation, always supported by wide collaboration. In my 18 months at KAUST, I've come to learn that KAUST itself stands as an expression of this principle. This university was created as an instrument of adaptation for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. It reflects, in its essence, a national commitment to knowledge, to scientific excellence, and to preparing for a future defined by both complexity on the one hand, but by massive opportunity on the other. Through research, education, and global partnership, KAUST contributes to the Kingdom's ability to adapt to environmental change, to diversify its economy, and to lead in science and technology, not only locally, but on the world stage. And we are very much part of that. The WEP 2026 brings this mission to life. Over the coming days, all of you will engage with scholars, with innovators, and practitioners who explore adaptation across critical domains ranging from climate and water systems to food security, energy transitions, health, digital transformation, and of course, AI. Sessions on regenerative environments, adaptive cities, resilient food systems, and the evolving role of data and AI all underscore an absolutely central message. The future will belong to those who can integrate knowledge across disciplines and translate insight into appropriate action. You will hear how scientific discovery informs policy and practice, and we have some real expertise in that today from our guest speaker. How technology can support more adaptive societies, and how creativity and culture help us make sense of rapid change. These conversations reflect the spirit of WEP, broadening perspectives and encouraging connectivity that may not be obvious at first, yet often proves absolutely essential. A particular focus of this year's programme is inspiring our students and early career researchers to see themselves, to see yourselves as leaders of adaptation. The challenges we face are truly complex, but believe me, all of them are solvable. Each of you has a role to play in shaping solutions that serve both local and global communities. These solutions won't come, any of them, from one individual place. They will come from many contributions that will be brought together. As you participate in WEP 2026, I don't think you need this encouragement, but I will encourage you all to engage openly, question assumptions, and think boldly about how your work, your individual contribution, connects to the larger systems that sustain our world. Let this program be a space where ideas are challenged, collaborations begin to be formed, and new approaches to adaptation begin to take shape. I would like, in closing, to extend my sincere thanks to the WEP leadership, particularly Prof. Deanna Lacoste, Prof. Atif, Shamim, the entire enrichment team who we've just seen, and all those who contributed to the design and delivery of this outstanding program. I also thank our speakers and participants for bringing their insight and energy to KAUST. So with that, enough from me. I wish you all an inspiring and rewarding Winter Enrichment Programme 2026. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sir Edward, for your welcoming remarks. I am now delighted to welcome to the stage our distinguished keynote speaker, His Excellency Dr. Abdulaziz Almalik, Deputy Minister for Research and Innovation at the Ministry of Environment, Water and Agriculture. Dr. Almalik comes with a rich educational background and experience. In the past, he held senior leadership roles at King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology, including Vice President for Scientific Research Support, Vice President for Innovation and Technology Commercialization, and Director of the Life and Environmental Sciences Research Institute. He was also part of the founding team of the Research, Development and Innovation Authority, RDIA. Dr. Almalik serves on several national boards and committees, including the National Center for Research and Development of Sustainable Agriculture, ISTIDAMA, the Advisory Board of KAUST National Transformation Institute, NTI, and the Boards of Trustees of Tabuk University and Qasim University. He is also a trustee of Al-Mara'i Prize for Scientific Innovation. Dr. Abdulaziz holds a PhD in Pharmaceutical Sciences from the University of Manchester, an MS degree in Clinical Pharmacy from the University of Glasgow, and a Bachelor of Science degree in Pharmaceutical Sciences from King Saud University. He published over 50 scientific papers and holds multiple patents in pharmaceuticals, alongside leading and co-leading major national RDI endeavors such as the Saudi Genome Program and the National RDI Strategy. Please help me to welcome Dr. Almalik to the stage.
Assalamu alaikum. Good afternoon, everyone. So let me start by thanking KAUST leadership team, Sir Edward Byrne, and the wider KAUST community for your hospitality and continuous partnership. Would like also to thank the WEP organizers for granting me such an amazing opportunity to be here among such an amazing crowd of brilliant minds and future nation builders. I was discussing earlier with Sir Edward Byrne that I just happened to know that keynote speakers of previous events were either famous athletes or Nobel laureates or famous artists, and that actually honestly put some pressure on me. But I promise you I will do my best to live up to your expectations from this keynote. Just a story of an ordinary guy who had to pivot several times in his path, looking for a purpose and trying to create impact for his nation. So today, I will share a few thoughts shaped by my own experience of adapting to change. As a student, a researcher, a research administrator, and eventually a policymaker. At each stage, one idea became increasingly clear to me. To adapt to change, we must build adaptable systems. And to build adaptable systems, we must first cultivate adaptable individuals. And the journey of creating adaptable individuals begin in places of learning and wisdoms, like this one. As I share my own reflection, I invite you all to share yours, to challenge mine, and to consider how these ideas connect to your journey. So when Charles Darwin reflected on why some species endure while others disappear, he reached a conclusion that remains deeply relevant today. Survival, he observed, does not favor the strongest nor the most intelligent, but those most responsive to change. This insight is powerful. Endurance is not determined by force alone, and it is not determined by intelligence alone. It is determined by the ability to sense change early and adjust before conditions become unforgiving. Human-built systems, institutions, policies, organizations are no different in their need to adapt if they are to survive and to thrive. But unlike natural systems, they do not adapt instinctively. They adapt by choice. They adapt when leaders invest in foresight capability and learning before pressure turns into crises. This is why adaptation is not merely a technical concept. It is a leadership choice. Today, adaptation is no longer about reacting after shocks arrive. It is about building the capacity to anticipate, absorb, and adjust in advance. And this is why adaptation cannot be separated from innovation, from talent development, or from institutional leadership. In the end, systems do not adapt by accident. They adapt because someone chose deliberately to make them capable of change. And this is where adaptation becomes personal. Over the next few minutes, I will share parts of my own journey, not because it is unique, but because it reflects something many of us experience. A professional path shaped by changing conditions, by moments that required reassessment, and by the need to adjust course in order to remain useful. I share this simply to illustrate that adaptation in practice is rarely linear. It is often a series of thoughtful adjustments made in response to new realities while staying anchored to purpose. When I was a student, I chose pharmacy because I wanted to be close to impact, to contribute directly to people's lives. I pushed myself toward clinical practice. I trained as a clinical pharmacist, and I asked myself a simple but demanding question. Where can I make the greatest difference? Which patients would need me the most? That question led me to intensive care units and oncology wards. Those environments teach you a great deal very quickly. They teach you precision, they teach you responsibility, and they teach you what it means to be fully present at moments that truly matter. But they also confront you with something difficult. Day after day, I was exposed to human suffering at its most acute, patients at their most vulnerable, families living with uncertainty, fear, and loss. One moment in particular stayed with me. On my first day in the oncology ward, I was accompanying 2 physicians and a senior pharmacist. We entered a room where a 12-year-old girl was being treated. She appeared healthy to me. She was smiling, full of life. The team greeted her and her family warmly and acknowledged her courage in fighting the disease. And then, just moments later, they explained quietly and carefully to the parents that the treatment plan would change. The disease was now terminal, and care would shift to palliation. In that moment, I understood something profound. Clinical care demands not only knowledge and skills, but emotional endurance of the highest order. Over time, I realized that while I deeply respected clinical practice, I was struggling with the cumulative emotional toll of witnessing that level of suffering every day. This was not a lack of commitment. It just was an honest recognition of personal limits. This forced a difficult but necessary question. Where can I contribute most meaningfully over the long term without losing the clarity and judgment required to serve others well? That question marked a turning point. I came to understand that my contribution might not be at the bedside, but upstream, in shaping the knowledge and decisions that influence outcomes for many, not just one. That is what led me into research, not as a profession, but as a discipline and as the next stage of my own adaptation. Research taught me how to think before learning what to think, how to frame questions precisely, how to break complexity into tractable components, how to test assumptions rigorously, and how to accept uncertainty, not as a failure, but as a part of the process. In other words, research taught me how to adapt intellectually before acting operationally. It taught me patience, it taught me humility, and it taught me something that later became central to my leadership approach. Meaningful progress rarely comes from quick answers. Over time, I found myself gravitating towards problems that mattered, not because they were fashionable, but because they were consequential. Problems at the intersection of biology and medicine. As a scientist, my early work focused on technical rigor, producing evidence, advancing knowledge, publishing results. That foundation matters deeply to me. It still does. But again and again, I observed the same pattern. Strong scientific solutions were emerging, evidence was accumulating, yet outcomes on the ground were not changing, neither at the pace nor at the scale required. This was not because the science was weak. It was because the systems surrounding the science were not ready to adapt. That realization marked a turning point. I came to understand that solving the scientific problem was no longer enough. I needed to take responsibility for the system in which solutions would either live or fail. I did not move into administration to leave research behind. I moved because the problems I cared about had grown beyond a single discipline, a single department, or a single role, and demanded system-level adaptation. My early leadership experience unfolded within the national laboratory system, particularly through my roles at King Abdulaziz City for Science and Technology, KAUST. Those years were formative. At KAUST, I had the opportunity to work across life sciences, biotechnology, and technology commercialization, and to see firsthand how mission-driven research R&D is conducted at national scale. Not only through funding and infrastructure, but through people, governance, incentives, and continuity. I also had the rare privilege of working closely with some of the most accomplished scientists and researchers in the world, both Saudi and international. Some were even Nobel laureates. What struck me the most was not only their brilliance, but their discipline, the way they approached uncertainty with humility, through collaboration and with commitment to long-term scientific missions. During that period, we launched national programs that mattered. Large-scale genomics initiatives, emergency research programs during public health crises, advanced talent development pipelines that prepared Saudi young talent to penetrate few of the best global academic institutions while strengthening domestic capabilities. I want to share one story that has stayed with me because it captures why mission-driven research truly matters and how collective efforts, when carried out by skilled and committed talent, can translate knowledge into real impact. It was the story of a toddler with cancer who, in 2019, reached a point where conventional treatment options were exhausted. Clinically, there was very little left to offer. And for her family, the future had narrowed to uncertainty and fear. What changed her story was not a single moment in a hospital room, but years and years of upstream work, advanced genomic analysis that allowed her disease to be understood at a molecular level, rather than by where it appeared in the body. That insight opened a path that would not have existed otherwise. The real heroes in this story were the molecular scientists who built the knowledge and the clinicians who had the courage and skill to act on it. My role this time was different. It was administrative and strategic in nature. I was not at the bedside. I was not in the laboratory. My contribution began much earlier, in 2016, by helping build the investment case for the Saudi Genome Project, securing national backing under the National Transformation Program of Vision 2030, and convincing decision makers that this capability was worth funding at scale. Still, being part of a system that made that outcome possible felt, at least to me, like a lifetime achievement. Because a life was changed, a family was given hope, and a child was given time. That experience reinforced a lesson I had already begun to see. Impact does not emerge from isolated excellence. It emerges from systems that allow excellence to compound over time. But it has also revealed the limits of a system that is primarily supply-driven. Despite its partial achievements, the full potential of the Saudi Genome Project, for example, has yet to be realized in terms of large-scale clinical and societal impact. We were strengthening the R&D base, but the distance between research outputs and large-scale adaptation remained significant. And so the question in my mind began to change. Not, are we producing good research? But is the system designed to absorb, utilize, and scale that research? That question followed me into my time as part of the founding team at the Research Development and Innovation Authority, RDIA. And by the time I joined RDIA, it felt like a natural evolution of my career, from clinical practice to research administration, to shaping policies that determine how knowledge is funded, organized, and translated into national capability. Each step built on the one before it. The questions became broader, the time horizons longer, but the underlying purpose remained the same: maximizing impact through evidence and systems that work. But by that point in my career, I had already adapted several times, from clinical practice to research, from individual problems to national programs. At RDIA, my role was firmly on the supply side of the system. RDIA played and continues to a critical national role. Its mandate was clear: to fund excellence, to build national research and innovation capabilities, and to shape a coherent long-term national innovation strategy. That work is foundational. No system can adapt without a strong knowledge base. Working at RDIA allowed me to see at scale how scientific capability is built, how talent is supported, how research agendas are shaped, and how national priorities are translated into funding and programs. But it also sharpened my understanding of where the system was beginning to strain. Many of our most pressing challenges were no longer constrained by scientific potential. They were constrained by what happened after the research was done, by adoption gaps, by misaligned incentives, by regulatory readiness, by institutional fragmentation. In other words, the bottleneck was increasingly downstream, located within the domain of sector-focused policymakers and regulators, where adoption, incentives, and implementation are shaped. This realization did not diminish the importance of RDIA's role, but it also revealed a missing piece in the system, and it forced a deeply personal question, one shaped by my own path of adaptation. If the constraint is no longer knowledge creation, but demand-side readiness, then where can one exactly fix the system to deliver real-world impact? At a certain point, I was invited to join the Ministry of Environment, Water, and Agriculture. For someone trained as a clinical pharmacist, being asked to help lead the national innovation agenda across environment, water, and agriculture was honestly not an obvious next step. But it underscored an important lesson. Adaptation is only essential for, it's not only essential for institutions, it is essential for careers. And for those of you wondering whether your training and scientific background fixes your future path, it does not. As challenges evolve, so do the ways you can contribute. Those who keep learning and crossing boundaries often find their impact expands. Accepting that invitation was a deliberate choice, not to change titles, but to change perspective. What intrigued me about MIWA was the opportunity to work from the demand side this time. It was an opportunity to step closer to where decisions shape real-world outcomes, and to work from a position where research, policy, and impact intersect. To begin not with research supply, but with real-world sector challenges, with national priorities such as food security, water sustainability, and environmental resilience, with outcomes that matters to citizens, markets, and ecosystems. The central question shifted from what research can we fund to what outcomes must the system deliver. That shift fundamentally reshaped how I think about adaptation. Since systems do not adapt simply because knowledge exists, they adapt when knowledge is used, embedded into decisions, scaled through markets, and sustained by institutions. Working from the demand side allowed me to rethink innovation policy, not as a pipeline, but as a system. Once inside MIWA, the nature of the challenge became very clear. The real question was whether the system itself was capable of turning knowledge into outcomes that matter. Outcomes aligned with Vision 2030, grounded in food security, water sustainability, environmental resilience, and economic growth. And it became evident very quickly that leadership in this context is not about running programs. It is about designing conditions and orchestrating efforts under which many actors, researchers, regulators, investors, companies, and entrepreneurs can move towards a common goal. That realization immediately shaped how we approached innovation. Innovation without common agenda fragments, innovation without steered investment stalls, innovation without governance drifts. So the first task was not to launch initiatives, but to establish clarity. Clarity on priorities, clarity on roles and responsibilities, and clarity on what success looks like over time. This is why a common national framework for research, development, and innovation across the EWA sectors became essential, not as a document for compliance, but as an organizing logic for the system. But strategy on its own is never enough. I learned early that ambition without investment remains aspiration. So we focused on mobilizing resources, public and private, not simply to fund activity, but to signal seriousness. Investment became a language of trust. When capital aligns behind a mission, behavior changes, people commit, institutions stay, risk becomes opportunity. As investment began to align, another constraint became visible: governance. Systems rarely fail because people lack effort. They fail because rules are unclear, decisions are slow, and accountability is diffused. So we deliberately built a governance architecture for research and innovation across the three sectors, not to centralize control, but to clarify ownership, to ensure decisions could be made with confidence, responsibility could be clearly assigned. At the same time, I became acutely aware of another limitation. We cannot govern what we cannot see. This led us to invest in analytical capabilities, not as an academic exercise, but as a planning tool. the ability to read global research trends, emerging technologies, investment flows, and policy signals fundamentally change the quality of our decisions. These choices reshape the role of the ministry itself. Rather than treating research and innovation as upstream activities, we reoriented the system toward real-world adoption, market creation, and mission-driven outcomes. This required difficult organizational decisions. It was not easy. We repositioned the research and innovation function away from direct execution toward policy-making, ecosystem orchestration, and strategic investment. That transition was not easy, but it was necessary to build a system capable of scaling beyond individuals and units. As this shift took hold, 4 structural patterns began to emerge. First, MIWA assumed a clear national champion role for environment, water, and agriculture innovation, aligning diverse actors around shared priorities rather than fragmented initiatives. Second, innovation was treated as a system, not a collection of projects. Governance, investments, policy, and partnerships were deliberately designed to reinforce one another. Third, we introduced mechanisms that actively pulled innovation into the market through regulation, procurement, and deployment pathways, rather than waiting for adoption to happen organically. And fourth, instead of broad, undirected capacity building, we enabled capabilities precisely where system constraint existed. To ground this shift from intention to impact, we captured the result of MIWA's RDI plan execution in a recent ecosystem health check report, you all will be seeing, inshallah, in the month of February. It shows how a mission-driven demand-led approach has mobilized over 6 billion Saudi Arabian riyals in public and private RDI investments, with an expected impact of more than 20 billion Saudi Arabian riyals contribution to the GDP, and tens of thousands of jobs creation by 2030. More than 300 solutions are now being tested and scaled across the environment, water, and agricultural sectors. Evidence of a system that is learning to adapt by aligning investments with real needs, testing early, and scaling what works under uncertainty. Throughout this process, one lesson became deeply personal to me. Systems adapt through people. Talent is not attracted by structure alone. It is attracted by purpose. People want to know that their work matters, that it connects to something larger, and that effort will translate into real-world impact. Building the right team was therefore not just an operational task, it was a signal of intent. The same applies to partnerships. Partnerships do not form because we invite them. They form when there is clarity, credibility, and consistent follow-through when institutions move reliably from vision to execution. A few weeks ago, I received my 3rd round of annual performance feedback from my boss. As expected, it reviewed milestones, delivery, and execution. But what stayed with me were not the scores themselves. It was what the system was observing through his eyes. 2 signals stood out: talent attraction and retention, and partnership building. I did not interpret those as personal outcomes. I interpreted them as feedback on the system that we created over the past 3 years. People do not choose to join or stay in systems that lack purpose, clarity, and momentum. And meaningful partnerships do not form around institutions that cannot consistently translate intent into action. In that sense, people and partners are often the earliest and the most reliable indicators of whether a system is truly adapting. Looking back, this experience reinforced a simple truth. Adaptation at the national level is rarely driven by a single breakthrough or initiative. It emerges from alignment between strategy and governance and investments and incentives, and people and purpose. And it requires patience. Systems do not change overnight. But when they do begin to move, they move because someone made the deliberate choice to invest in capability long before pressure made it unavoidable. That, to me, is what adaptation looks like. At this point, I would like to pause and invite you to reflect your own perceptions on the topic. And if you had to choose one problem worth committing the next 5 years of your work to, what it would be? And why does it matter for adaptation? I will give 2 to 3 minutes to answer. Some of the answers are interesting, but rather irrelevant. Okay. Energy. Sir Edward, do you think this is the influence of His Royal Highness, maybe? Okay, we move to the next one. So where do you see the largest gap between research excellence and real-world adoption in your field? Okay. I totally agree with the answer. My second answer would be regulatory readiness. But interesting feedback. We move to the next. So what part of our innovation system today is least prepared to adapt to future shocks? This one is a bit hard to choose from. So I will go with the regulatory and standards again. Regulators hate me. Okay, the last one, how do we design policies and institutions that can adapt over time rather than locking us into yesterday's assumptions? Okay. It's a very reasonable choice. Okay. Moving to the next part and the final part of my presentation. So this brings me to the role of universities and why institutions like KAUST are so central to adaptation. As you all know, the challenges we face in water, food systems, and environmental resilience do not yield to service-level understanding. They require depth of inquiry, interdisciplinary thinking, intellectual continuity, and patience for long-term impact. These are precisely the conditions universities are designed for. Universities are not built for quick answers. They are built to sit with difficult questions long before those questions become crises. This is also why strong university-government partnerships matter. MIWA partnership with KAUST is grounded in a simple idea. Adaptation happens when scientific excellence is connected directly to national missions, policy decisions, and real-world deployment. That alignment between research, policy, and implementation is what turns knowledge into impact. For students in this room, adaptation is not a topic you will encounter once. It is the environment in which your careers will unfold. The questions you chose to pursue, the methods you apply, and the collaborations you form here and beyond the university will shape not only your own paths, but how effectively our system adapts in the years ahead. This is why partnership between universities and public agencies matter, not just as places of learning, but as agencies, engines of adaptation for society. Let me close with 5 simple points. First, adaptation is a choice, not a reaction. Second, capability building, especially through people and partnerships, is one of the most durable investments we can make. Third, responsibility and agility must coexist. Clear ownership enables confident action under uncertainty. Fourth, innovation systems consistently outperform isolated innovation. And finally, partnerships are not optional in uncertain environments. Adaptation depends on those who can think systematically, question assumptions, and carry knowledge forward over time. Universities are where those capabilities are formed. I look forward to the discussion and invite you all to share your questions, reflections, and perspectives. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Dr. Almalik, for this very inspiring and informative talk. I would like to ask you to join me, please, to the stage. Dear audience, please have your questions ready. We have 2 mics on both sides. Kindly use the mics. Introduce yourself by stating your name, which university you're from, and which program. Also, I would like to ask you to be very brief in your questions. Thank you. Okay. So by the time I see students wanting to line up. Okay, so Dr. Almalik, during your presentation, you talked about your transition into research to make the maximum impact possible. Where do you see the largest gap between strong research evidence and real-world implementation today? And what is the main barrier, in your opinion, keeping proven solutions from scaling?
Thank you, Dr. Arwa, for the question. I really would like to encourage our students to come forward and asking and share reflections, and please don't be politically correct. Try to say whatever in your minds and challenge the ideas I just shared with you. So back to your question, Dr. Arwa, I think it's rarely the problem of the technology or the knowledge itself. So the technologies are usually good, and knowledge, I'm talking in the Saudi context, and knowledge created are of highest quality. But the problem, the system around the knowledge and the technologies are not adapting those new and innovative solutions into and translating them into real impact. And I can summarize the gaps under 4 major buckets. The first gap maybe is the market adoption barriers. Early users are usually hesitant to try new ideas, new innovations, and they prefer usually the legacy technologies available around, okay? And this problem even exacerbated in the kingdom, in less innovative economies. Because it's just the return on investment is uncertain, and there's risk associated with investing in new technology, and sometimes even to the extent where some proven and commercially available technologies elsewhere in advanced economies, when you localize it here and try to implement it here, you find a bit of resistance and a bit of challenges. So that, in my opinion, one of the most important barriers. The second barrier, I think, is the financial barrier. You know that innovation is expensive, it's capital intensive, it's long term, it's uncertain. So return on investment is a bit questionable. So private capital is a bit hesitant to go into that field. And that, and funding usually stops at the research stage, at the upstream component of the pipeline. That's a major barrier, actually, and need a systemic intervention by the government to fix it. The third barrier, in my opinion, is the regulatory barrier and institutional also setup. So technological shifts happen quite often, and sometimes they are so overwhelming that governments are just trying to cope with. As we speak now, all the governments around the globe are trying to cope with the AI revolution now. It's happened. It seemed like it happened abruptly, but actually there were some signals and in the past that a momentum is forming and something will happen there 5 years ago, and 10 years ago. But they are just coping. That's the nature of regulators and policymakers. So I think rigid regulations are also significant barrier to innovation. Fourth bucket of barriers could be put under the technology integration barriers. And this is not universal. Some fields are suffering from this more. where you see a very brilliant idea that translated into a prototype that was validated under controlled conditions. But once you try to integrate this into industrial settings or real-world farms or what have you, you find difficulties translating that or transferring this knowledge into a market and create value out of it. We see this obvious in, for example, agricultural sector. This is because, let's say, the small and medium household farmers usually struggle with, they are not tech savvy, and they struggle with dealing with advanced technologies. So they tend to stay with the traditional approaches and practices they always do. So I think the question is, what can we do about them? So we know the problems, the barriers. What can we do? I think the governments and ministries, in particular, they can play a catalytic role. They can be the first buyers and adapters through public procurement instrument. They can also create sandboxes for technologies to create space for safe experimentation of new technologies. They can also establish infrastructure and demonstration sites, so they can actually demonstrate the effectiveness of technologies in the real world with the end users themselves around. So I think government can play a critical role in this, and from MEWA perspective, we are trying heavily and aggressively actually to do that.
Okay, great, thank you. I think there's a question over there. Tfaddali.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Shahad Al-Matrafi, and actually I am not a KAUST student. I'm a biology student at Taiba University, and this year I am a senior. And what I want to ask is, you didn't mention the non-profit sector when you was talking, and now I am a founding of an equation, NMO equation for research and innovation. It's just graduated from MISC accelerator, and I just want to ask, in our equation, we focus on environmental sustainability and empowering youth when we're coming to research and research study and innovation and environmental sustainability. So my question is, now in our equation, it is from youth to youth, leading by youth. And I just want to ask now how the non-profit sector and equation like NMO can really cooperate and let's say do an impact when we're coming to R&D sector.
Sorry, what sector you were talking about?
Innovation and research.
Okay, sorry?
Non-profit.
Non-profit. Okay, can you repeat the question, please, again?
Okay, my question is, now when we're coming to non-profit sector, how the equation, the non-profit equation can cooperate and let's say do impact when we're coming to empowering youth in research and innovation. This is my question, especially in environmental sustainability.
Sure. Thank you for the question. It's very important. So, talking from MEWA perspective, we have taken this into consideration, and we are working very closely, for example, with Mawhiba institution to empower youth, and to actually, we are looking into the full pipeline from youth until post-graduation, post-graduation studies. Postgrad studies. So we are working with Mawhiba, we are working with MISC into trying to fill the gap in the pipeline of talent. So if you are following me was plan, we have 4 pillars. The 4th one is about creating capacity to innovate. for the system. And of course, creating capacity comes from talent. And from that angle, we are working heavily with non-profit organizations such as Mawhiba and MISC, as I mentioned, to empower youth and even beyond that. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a question here. Please, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. My name is Thibaut Ghiberti. I'm on the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering here at KAUST. Thank you for your intervention. I really liked it. So you mentioned that you were supporting around like 300 projects at MIWA. I'm curious if you would be willing to give specific about a couple of flagship projects you like.
For MIWA?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we are working with KAUST, for example, on developing the next generation algae technologies, biotechnologies. We are very keen to decrease our exposure into, for example, the importation of feed for poultry and for other animal sectors. So we are trying heavily to develop algae byproduct to replace the corn and the corn and the soybeans. Okay, that's one. And I think we have industrial scale facility now within KAUST that is almost commercial in scale, and it's operational. And trying now to find partners such as Samsung. We are in discussion with Samsung and others to take this fully commercial now. Other projects would be the fishery project also with KAUST. We now created fisheries plants in the onshore here, offshore, sorry, with in the innovation park at KAUST. We are trying to replace imports also, and hopefully by 2030 we will be able to create economic impact of $500 million US dollars annually. Yeah, and I will be happy to share with you the report, and we have so many endeavors that are happening now.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Almalik, you talked about national research capability during your talk. If you could change one thing in how universities and government collaborate to build adaptive national capability in water, food, and environment, what would that be?
If I would change something, I would change the way that that ministries and universities are collaborating. Are collaborating as we speak. Now I see it more like universities are just the subject or an audience of the national R&D and innovation agendas. And I think we need to co-create national agendas of innovation moving forward to accelerate the pathway to impact. And that can be done through, I think, several levers. The first is we need to anchor our relation with universities around national missions. So not simply funding abstract research themes, but actually we need to align public demand, private investments, and societal impact to pull knowledge created by universities and innovation created by universities into market and to create impact. That's one. And I think also we need, even the proxies needs to be around very specific targets, mission targets, such as reducing, for example, in our case at EWA sectors, reducing, for example, non-renewable water use by X% by then, by 2040, 2045, and what have you. The second mechanism, I think we need to create more joint governance frameworks with universities. I think we have a very good case between MIWA and KAUST. I think it could serve as a yardstick of success to other ministries. At least this is my humble opinion. it really sets the direction from the top down, and also create the opportunity from the bottom up to elevate into meeting the national agenda. Third, okay, this is very important. I know that Deanna is saying that the time is finished. But maybe third is, and this is until this is for ministries, actually, the roles of ministries. Maybe they need to be more active in deploying policy instruments that can create demand for innovation. Public procurement, regulatory sandboxes, maybe also building more demonstration sites for technology to be scaled and piloted. This is very important, I think, and there is room for improvement here. And last is actually concerning universities themselves, because the systems, I'm talking about Saudi University, the system is incentivizing knowledge creation by and large, and also neglecting, and honestly neglecting other indicators and other levers that could make the universities more relevant to national agendas, such as startups created out of research reach to market, IPs get licensed, and so on. We need to, I think, revisit the incentive systems within our academic sector at the national scale to make it more relevant to missions and to national missions and agendas.
Wonderful, thank you so much. So a final word of advice from you to this wonderful group of future scientists?
Well, keep dreaming, keep adapting. Okay, it's not easy. It's a very difficult world that is around us, and we need to be capable to pivot and adapt and learn and follow a purpose and try to create impact for your countries and the rest of the world.
Thank you very much, Dr. Almalik, for taking the time from your busy schedule. We truly appreciate your presence and your talk. And I also want to extend my thanks to our audience. And I wish you all an engaging and informative event. And I think, yeah, we would like to award you something.
My turn. And then you continue. I'll just say something.
Thank you, Professor Arwa Al-A'ma, and thank you to His Excellency Dr. Abdulaziz Almalik for the inspiring opening keynote.
Your reflections on adaptation and innovation have set a powerful tone for WEP 2026, especially through your inspiring personal journey, adapting, rising up the ranks, and the achievements attained along the way. At least one quote that specifically hit me as inspiring your research and a PhD student. A quote, His Excellency said, "Meaningful progress really comes from quick answers." To continue the opening ceremony, we'd like to invite you to experience a performance that reflects the spirit of culture, creativity, and adaptation.
Tonight's performance brings together kalimat, Arabic calligraphy and light, transforming words into movement and meaning.
Through this unique art form, tradition adapts and meets contemporary expression.
We are honored to welcome Alif Motion, featuring artist and calligrapher Mr. Julian Britton.
Please join us in welcoming Alif Motion.
من مشارق الأرض ومغاربها، وإلى غاية واحدة، نحو أفق طموح تتلاقى فيه العقول وتتآلف الرؤى. وتبدأ رحلة الإثراء، وينبثق الابتكار ليصنع الأثر، ويفتح للعلوم والتقنية أبواباً جديدة. هنا في كاوست تصقل المواهب وتولد الأفكار، فتغدو إنجازات تخدم الإنسان. إنجازات تخدم الإنسان ويشار إليها بالبنان. هنا تخاض التجارب وتستضيء العقول بنور المعرفة. ويقود الشغف دروب الاكتشاف. هنا تصاغ الريادة، ومن هذا المكان انطلق علماء وقادة. حولوا التحديات إلى فرص ووضعوا لها حلولاً واعدة. هنا نستشرف الغد ونعيد تشكيل المستقبل. ومن هنا تأسست رؤية طموحة لا تعرف المستحيل.
I hope you enjoyed the wonderful performance from Alif Motion. Thank you for joining us, the opening of the Winter Enrichment Program 2026. Before you go, just few reminders. Registered students, please remember to check out through the event application.
And also, tomorrow's keynote lecture will take place at 1 p.m. in this exact auditorium. We kindly ask everyone to arrive on time for all the sessions throughout WEP. And now I'd like to welcome you to enjoy the reception happening here outside this auditorium in the lobby.
We wish you a wonderful evening and a great start to WEP 2026.
Je n'ai pas peur de la route, faudrait voir, faut qu'on y goûte, des méandres au creux des reins, tout ira bien. Le vent l'emportera. Dans message à la grande ours, la trajectoire de la course, l'instantané de velours. Même s'il ne sert à rien, le vent l'emportera, tout disparaît.